TSA Oxford 2020, question 50, last question. The table below shows the medal count by the top 5 teams in a recent mini Olympics. Each team calculated the proportion of their medals that were gold. Which of the following charts shows this proportion for each of the 5 teams? Okay, so we see a lot of these types of questions with charts and sort of visualizing data. And it's really important that you put in the right work quickly too, to find out what the base information on the graphs or the charts or the data table is asking you for. So in this case, it's asking you for the proportion of the medals that were gold. So you have to figure that out first. And then once you have that data, I think things will make a lot more sense when you're looking for the right answer. Okay, so let's just start here. Team Amber, excuse me, Team Amber got 8 gold medals, and they got 7 silver and 6 bronze. So the proportion of medals that were gold would be obviously the number of gold medals divided by the number of gold plus silver plus bronze. That would be the percentage, right? Okay. 8 plus 7 plus 6 equals 21, and 8 out of 21 were gold. Okay, next one. Emerald team, 5 plus 10 plus 6, so they got 21 medals. 5 of them were gold. Okay, next one. 6 plus 6 plus 10, so 22 medals, and 6 of them were gold. 6 out of 22 were gold. Next one. 6 plus 5 plus 5 is 16. 6 of them were gold. 6 out of 16. You see the proportions were, TSA wasn't going to make it easy, were they? So, oh boy. All right. And the next one, 11 plus 8 plus 9. So 11 out of 28 were gold. Okay. This is going to be harder than we thought. Harder than I thought, at least. But let's just jump into it. So, I think looking at the numbers, I want to focus on these 3 numbers first, right? Because 5 out of 21 is going to be very similar to 6 out of 22, but I think 5 out of 21 is going to be less than 6 out of 22. So that's going to be less than 6 out of 22. So what I expect to see is the bar on the bar chart below for Emerald, it's going to be shorter than the one for Garnet, Team Garnet, right? So I know Emerald is going to be less than Garnet. Then I want to look at these two. So 6 out of 22 versus 6 out of 16. Which one of these is the larger fraction? Well, because the denominator is smaller, the fraction is larger, right? So 6 out of a smaller number on the bottom is a larger number. So we know that 6 out of 22 here is going to be less than 6 out of 16. And we can move that to here. So that's 6 out of 16, right? Because if 6 out of 16 is larger than 6 out of 22, and 6 out of 22 is larger than 5 over 21, then obviously 6 over 16 would be larger than 5 over 21. So this is something we can sort of, that will be our jumping off point. So we know that E is smaller than G, and then that Jade is larger than both of them, right? The proportion for Jade team is larger than both of them. And then we have 2 of these fractions here, by the way, right? We have 5 out of 21 and 8 out of 21. And we're asking which one is larger. Well, obviously 8 is larger, right? We don't know how large 8 out of 21 is in relation to these. I'm assuming it falls somewhere around here. It's going to be larger than 6 out of 22, but I'm not quite sure. But we just know that out of these, Amber is going to have a taller bar. Amber is going to have a taller bar than Emerald. Okay. Let's take a look at the chart so far. And we're going to remember these rules here, right? These are the rules that we've determined from analyzing our fractions. We didn't have to simplify any fractions or actually divide them out. So let's see, emerald is going to be smaller than garnet, and it's going to be smaller than jade. Okay, so right off the bat, we have a problem with B. Sorry, I was looking at B first, by the way. So I was looking at B here. You see how garnet here and jade, let me change colors. Garnet and jade are the same level, right? They're the chart is purporting them to be at the same proportion. But if you look here, garnet and jade, one is 6 out of 22 and one is 6 out of 16. Those aren't equal fractions. We know that 6 out of 16 is larger than 6 out of 22. So this can't be the right chart. B is not correct. Let's take a look at A. Yeah, sorry for jumping around, but let's take a look at A. So in A, emerald is bigger than G, right? But look at this. G is, no, sorry about that. Hold on. E is supposed to be smaller than G, right? The bar for emerald is supposed to be lower than the bar for garnet. And again, if we revisit the reason why, it's because we determined that 5 out of 21 is smaller than 6 out of 22. So this we know is not correct. So A is not the right chart. Let's look at chart C. So chart C, let's test the first conclusion we drew, which was E is smaller than G and smaller than J. So we can see here that J is not larger than G, right? The bar for jade is lower than the bar for garnet. And again, we review why. So 6 out of 16, 6 out of 22, we know that jade has to be a higher bar because it has a higher proportion. So C is not correct. Anything without the jade bar being higher, so both of these pass the test, right? D here, you see jade has a higher bar than garnet. And we see in E, same thing. So these both pass this portion of the test, that J is greater than G. Let's test that G is greater than E part of it. So G has to be greater than E. Okay, both of those pass the test, right? So both G and E are approximately in the right proportion. Let's test the second part of the conclusion we drew, right? That A needs to be greater than E. And again, the reason for that is because you have both denominators 21 and A is greater than E here, right? Because A is 8, E is 5 out of 21. So A is greater than E. Let me take a look here. Okay, yes, so both of these are greater than E. Let's look at the primary difference between these two charts. So it looks like the primary difference between D and E is the relative proportion between, let's see here. Yeah, it looks like the relative proportion between A and E, right? So you see how in example E, in answer E, the proportion of emerald is much less than half of A. But in the case of D, it appears to be slightly greater than half. Well, it is greater than half of A. So you see here, half is about here, and you can see that this is clearly above half. Whereas in this example here, let's see, half is about here, and it doesn't even rise to half. So let's take a look at the A and E proportions one more time. Okay, so half of 8 out of 21, let me change colors. Half of 8 out of 21 is 4 out of 21. We know that 5 out of 21, the proportion for E is greater, right? So we know that E is greater than A times 50%. So we need to look for a bar where E is properly reflected as 5 out of 21 rather than something below 4 out of 21. So E needs to be above 50%. Okay, so in this case, E is above 50%. This here would be representative of 8 out of 21, and this properly represents 5 out of 21. If it was below if this bar was below the 50% mark as it is in answer E, then this proportion wouldn't add up. This proportion would have to be less than 4 out of 21. So we know that in this case, the answer is D. This chart is the one that most accurately reflects the proportion for each of the 5 teams.